record onto this computer. Okay, we are recording. Excuse me. It is the 5th of December 2018, and we are in the 11th session of a 12-session course on storytelling therapy. And I'm just going to give a discussion, lead a discussion about an article. And let's see if I can get it up on the screen. Let's see. Here it is. And I am going to make it a lot bigger so it's more readable. Is that readable? Is that big enough? Should I make it bigger?
No, that's fine.
How about that?
Fine.
Okay.
Yes.
The use of Harry Potter and fairy tales in narrative therapy. So in the course of this, we're going to try to define what are the Harry Potter stories, what type of literature are they, what are fairy tales, and what is narrative therapy.
So Harry Potter, there are lots of versions, right? Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets.
Well, there are many books, but they're all written by that one lady, right? What's her name? Janet Rowling?
Yes.
Yeah. But, you know, when something gets that famous, probably other people also write episodes. So whether she's writing it or someone else is writing it, it's still in a particular genre of literature, which honestly is not fairy tale. Fairy tale, academically speaking, refers to you know, those type of stories that involved a prince and a princess, a king, and was a folk tale, meaning it was passed down from generation to generation by spoken word, and was not created by any individual author. That's the definition of a folk tale, and a fairy tale is a folk tale that has some sort of magic in it. So technically, Harry Potter books are not fairy tales, because they are not created by a community. They're created by an individual author, but I'm being picky and academic. I think many people might say that Harry Potter stories are like fairy tales, right? So let them say it. Okay, so this article is about narrative therapy. Narrative therapy is a field that was developed especially in Australia. There were two gentlemen in Australia who founded it, and it especially looks at culture and the different cultural norms and ideals that we're exposed to. And it looks at how a person can be pushed and pulled by one cultural norm or another. For example, if you're a woman and you feel that you should get married and take care of your husband and children, that's one cultural worldview. But if you feel you don't want to get married, like Avayar, that she wanted to be a poet, she wanted to be a professional person, she didn't want to get married and take care of a family, that's a different cultural worldview. So many times we are caught between opposing stories, opposing cultural worldviews. And then narrative therapy says we have to, work out a compromise. We have to choose one or the other or compromise. So that's narrative therapy. Let's see. Okay, introduction. Narrative therapy focuses on the power of communication through storytelling, helping a person to tell his story and then devise and live a more positive life. Okay. Fairy tales are sometimes used as a literary tool within narrative therapy to allow a person to fit story themes to their own experiences. And again, in these stories, we can recognize themes and integrate them or compare them to our own lives. So this paper examines the use of fairy tales, especially Harry Potter tales. Again, from a folklore point of view, this is not acceptable because Harry Potter tales are not fairy tales. But we're letting, obviously this was not written by a folklorist. But okay, she says they're a valuable tool. So the first section provides an overview of narrative therapy, and the second section is about the use of fairy tales in narrative therapy. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Any comments or questions so far?
No, I read this article. I was really surprised, how it is segmented into the later half. It was quite interesting. How certain challenges in the children, the adolescents, can be dealt through this narrative therapy. It was very inspiring and interesting.
It's a type of storytelling therapy, which is, what we've been working with this whole time, using story, using metaphors to think about one's own real life, but examining one's own real life through thinking about these fantasy characters. And we'll get to those Harry Potter fantasy characters in a minute, but first we're going to have a little discussion of narrative therapy. The central focus of narrative therapy is that the past is not fixed, but is based on the individual's interpretation. The individuals understand their lives through sequencing experiences across time, and the individual's interpretation of her life is known as a self-narrative. Okay, that's pretty clear. The account of what you've been through is your self-narrative. So narrative therapists, it seems, are involved in helping people re-author their personal narratives. In other words, change their narratives. Let's see how they're going to suggest that people can change their narratives. Well, to help them examine their lives in a more positive light, let's see what else they say. Transforming a disabling and restrictive narrative into an integrated narrative full of hope and possibilities. I've been hearing a lot of life stories lately about people who try this and that and have a hard time settling down. They do this career, that career, and in the 20s, 30s, 40s, and beyond, keep searching and trying this and trying that. When you're in the middle of a process like that, it can seem like your life is a waste, that you're confused. But if you can look back on it and see that it all fit together and it all led to a combination which is interesting and valuable, that is a different way to look at it. So I think what they're talking about here is looking at one's life in a new way that gives one hope and an optimistic way to look at your experience. Your mother might say, or your father might say, you're a failure. You haven't become a master of anything. You're not making a lot of money. But you yourself can transform that narrative into a narrative of hope and possibilities.
Is this something like somebody narrates their own experience as their perspective and how you create the hope and possibility in that?
That's right, exactly. And not letting yourself be controlled by others. So many people say, when it was time to go to college, I had two choices, to study medicine or to study engineering, or to study science or to study commerce. The choices for many people are very narrow. restricted. And sometimes people go along with it, but they're not happy. Sometimes people refuse and want to try something else. But these are all examples of, do you follow somebody else's script, or do you make up your own script? Or, do you follow a script that's outside your culture? According to Indian culture, for middle-class people, I think you're supposed to, it used to become an IAS officer. Now that doesn't seem to be so high on the list. But engineering and medical and business still seem to be the top ideals that parents have. As you all know, I think you're all parents, I think you're all parents. I am a parent. We're all so concerned that our children should be able to make a living, and should have a comfortable life. So we're motivated, but we may be, in our anxiety, giving our children a very limited set of choices, which they can go along with or they can reject. Okay, let's see. Okay, so they say there's a deconstruction stage and a reconstruction stage. What are they talking about? The first is the deconstruction, and they in their experience, a lot of people come into therapy saying they have a lot of problems.
Yeah.
So they have problem-saturated stories with negative memories, being a victim, and being depressed. So during the deconstruction phase, the narrative therapist, what is the narrative? Well, the narrative therapist helps the person become aware that that they're feeling bad about themselves. I guess they already know they're feeling bad about themselves, but maybe they help the client become aware you're feeling bad about yourselves because you're not living up to your father's ideals or something like that. Now, the second component is called the externalization of the problem, separating him from his personal problem. And they love to say, these people, they love to say, the person is not the problem is the problem. And I'm not really sure if I agree with that, because the person is not the problem is the problem. But the problem is part of oneself. But see, they're saying the problem is something that's imposed on you from the outside. So through conversations, individuals can come to understand their beliefs and see how these beliefs are causing the problem. They want to blame the problem on outside forces that are telling us what to do and coercing us and confusing us. That seems to be the worldview of this type of narrative therapy. So the therapist here helps the client or encourages the client to challenge that self-narrative, that one is a failure because one has not become a doctor or such and such, and create a new story. So they are going to explore the issues that may have played a role in constructing an individual's negative self-narrative. Okay, and then they're going to explore stories that the client maybe has ignored or forgotten. In other words, they're going to find strong points and strengths of the client that the client has forgotten about. You know, that the client is creative, that the client is resilient, that the client has lots of different talents. They're going to bring that up and help the client become more aware that she has other choices. And she can contradict the dominant story. The dominant story is that you're a failure if you're not a doctor or an engineer. So, okay. The final process is called reauthoring, which means, I guess, changing the story to say new interpretations of what is success, what is failure, and defining success in one's own terms. So it seems this whole approach, it's not very psychoanalytical. You know, it's not talking about looking at your unconscious or looking at the angry child or the injured child within yourself. It's blaming society or certain social ideals for people's unhappiness. So it's one approach. It's saying people are bullied into thinking they have to be doctors and engineers, and if it doesn't work out, then people feel they're a failure, and they're saying you should not feel you're a failure. You should look for what you can succeed at and what you are naturally good at, and make a new story out of that. So it's all about finding where you fit into society. If you're going to go along with society, if you're going to try to change society, if you're going to add something new to society. Okay, I want to get to the part about Harry Potter. I'm skipping ahead now. Oh, okay, this is now about fairy tales. There's one idea that children are happy to come across the wicked characters in fairy tales because children themselves know that they are not all good. And that's certainly true. So children can relate to the wickedness in certain characters because children know that they sometimes have a wicked side to themselves. Important areas of life skills that are raised in fairy tales are gaining independence, learning about parental absence, being abandoned, and dealing with death. Yes, it's true. Many of these topics do come up in fairy tales. And by listening and telling fairy tales, it does give one sort of practice in thinking about and facing these life situations. Becoming independent, losing one's parents, creating a new life for yourself, and one's own death or other people's deaths. I'm scanning ahead. Many fairy tales create situations in which the main character often loses a parent. While this character may have difficulties, she finally manages to gain confidence and become independent and secure in the end. Classically, in the European fairy tales, it ends with the marriage, right? It ends with the hero or heroine is about to marry a prince or princess and live happily ever after. So they are coming-of-age stories by which the young person overcomes whatever disasters have happened, including losing a parent. So that kind of story can be inspirational. Again, the death of the parents, the presence of evil, being isolated. These are challenges that characters may or may not overcome in fairy tales.
And it is related to the Cinderella story.
Well, we know Cinderella is the most famous one. She loses her parents, she's isolated, and
the evil characters.
there's the evil character, And finally, she is rescued by that kind fairy godmother,
Yeah.
who is sort of her, in a way, her fantasy of her good mother, of a good, nurturing female character. So it's optimistic. It's saying fantasies can come true. You have to keep dreaming. You have to keep hoping. You have to continue being good. Because if you're good, you will deserve to be rescued by a kind figure. One psychologist says, I have found that going off the well-worn path of tested group programs into the world of witches and wizards can take a group to, can be very beneficial for the process of exploring oneself and understanding oneself and changing oneself. Okay, finally, Harry Potter. Let's see. Harry Potter, I think his parents died as they were attacked by some evil character, right? Voldemort. And Harry got a scar on his forehead, which he has, you know, it's a lifelong scar. But it ends up helping him because it hurts when evil is approaching. So it gives him warning.
Yeah, it is similar like that. They are isolated and they have lost their parent. So that's all there.
Mm-hmm. So basic themes, the importance of making choices, developing relationships, the power of jealousy, dealing with loss, abuse, and neglect, learning about oneself, trusting others, paying attention to dreams, knowing the difference between good and bad. These are all issues that come up in Harry Potter and in life. Harry is consistently reminded through the scar on his forehead of that evil character who killed his parents. Harry is able to predict the evil character's arrival because the pain comes in the scar and he has nightmares. Thus, he learns how to ask for help, and he does not repress his fears. Rather, he learns to use as a way of survival. He is sensitive to impending danger, and he calls out for help. That's a very important lesson that he learns, and that's a model that he presents. Don't try to run away from danger. Don't try to ignore it. Be aware, be sensitive, and if it's approaching, call out for help and get ready to resist it. So Harry's situation provides an example, an illustration of the importance of seeking assistance and becoming aware of our thoughts rather than suppressing them. Okay, I think that's about it. Sigmund Freud described a family romance, a family fantasy, as a child longing for the happy days when his father seemed to him the noblest and strongest of men, and his mother was the dearest and loveliest of women. So we all want that idea, that dream. In some cases it was true for us, in some cases it was not true, but we all long for this ideal. And I guess he's saying in many cases, when we get older, we find out that our parents had feet of clay, that they were imperfect in various ways. But as long as possible, we like to hold on to the idea that they are superheroes. Okay, conclusion. In narrative therapy, we separate the person from his problems. Again, I don't really understand that. But okay, they're separating the person from their problems and objectify the problems. I understand objectifying the problem in terms of, you know, creating a story with symbols, with metaphors that represent the problems. But a problem is a part of a person just as much as a solution is a part of a person. A frustration is just as much of a part of one as joy. It's all these feelings and experience are part of one. So one has to, you know, face them and work with them. And I don't really see how it's valuable to say, you know, some of it is not me. But I think their point is that a lot of the problems are caused by social ideals that are imposed on us. I think that's the point.
I'd like to share one of my experience.
Go ahead.
In the training with landmark programs, Landmark Forum.
Go ahead.
In that, the Landmark Forum leader will be asking you about your relationship with your parent. And like when you narrate some problem that happened in your life and what impact it had on you, they do ask what actually the problem is, and on having a conversation with us, you will come to a solution that actually it is your manipulation or the way you see it. From your perspective, it is a problem for you and you created all that. That you'll be coming to sense at the end of the conversation. So it is, from your standpoint, you consider it should be like this. If it is not happening in that way, you consider it as a problem.
Yes, now I've heard of this Landmark organization. I think it began in California 50 years ago by a man named Werner Erhard. And it was called EFT training.
Yeah, exactly.
Erhard seminar training. And then some of the people in the company bought him out. They purchased the rights to his method, and they've taken it global. And so you've attended one of the seminars?
Yeah, I've attended it.
Tell us more. Tell us from the beginning what happened at this seminar. What was it all about?
First, it is like creating relationship with your family members, particularly your father and mother. If that relationship is not created or you haven't valued it, they will ask us to create that bonding communications with our family members. And after which you will be sensing a transformation within you. You'll be having a transparent sort of communication with the people around you, and it will be like not having rackets. They say this term, not having rackets. Racket is like the tennis racket which you use to hit, and it will come back again to you. So whatever problem you try to hit it with your anger or your disagreement with that situation will come back to you. So never do that. So you have to see it with an understanding. So it is a thing. You may not agree, or you may agree. Let it happen on its own. It will be very tough at the beginning. After sensing that, and you should not give any reasons in your lifetime. Like if you see something has happened because of this, I didn't do. Because of that, I didn't do. You should not give reasons. Not to give reasons, and be in that leadership that you take it up and find solutions for that.
So it's encouraging people to take responsibility for their own actions and their own situations.
Exactly.
And to be more aware of the relationships and the transactions that one is involved with.
Yeah, and everything is in your word. Your word is your word. So it is in your language, what you speak. The positiveness in your words is going to be your life. So for the words, the thought is the beginning. Like from the thought, you get the words, language occurs. So from the thought, you correct your thoughts, make it more positive.
See, someone called me last week who I don't even really know. I think maybe she was in one of my workshops, one of my 2-hour workshops. She called me and she said, I just attended a landmark seminar, and it was so valuable. I learned that I really am very angry at my sister-in-law because I have to do this and I have to do that for her, and I was doing it. But now I realize I'm very angry about it, and now I'm going to go and talk to her. And so she told me, Eric, you have to join this landmark. It will change your life.
Yeah.
So do most people realize that they are angry, that they feel they're being taken advantage of by somebody else? Is that a common theme? Do people come up on stage and sort of testify about what they learned?
Yeah, those who dare to, those who are so pressurized by the problem, by the issue, and they feel they want to come out of it.
Mm-hmm.
They are ready to testify themselves in front of hundreds of people.
Mm-hmm.
And some may sit and just think about their problem while the leader keep going with the solution, the possibility of solution strategically. First, you create the bonding communication with people and never have rackets with people. And the word is your world. Your word is your world.
But in Indian culture, there's such an emphasis on fulfilling family obligations. I wondered how this philosophy and this method, does it seem like anti-Indian? Is it anti-Indian family? Does anyone take it that way? Because it's encouraging people to be independent and stand up for themselves and not go along with fulfilling all these expectations and obligations. If you don't,
the very first thing is to create bonding communications. It's not anti-Indian. It's like cultivating the better relationships.
Mm-hmm.
And very promising and very transparent, positive family environment.
Mm-hmm.
So once you enter the space and you come out and you take it up like, okay, I attended a program, that's all, and you will become very similar like what you were earlier than the program. That is a possibility.
So it doesn't seem like it doesn't seem like it will weaken the family. It will not. See, people say about Westerners that they are more independent minded, and that Indian people are more family minded. So I'm asking, will it make Indian people more individualistic minded, or it will continue to support the family?
I can say they will become great thinkers. They will think a lot about what they are doing to others, and are they manipulating simple things, or sort of self-analysis thing.
But hopefully it will end up strengthening the family, hopefully.
You're right.
Good.
Yeah, I have a question. Madam Hema, madam, can you tell me one example there? Say, supposing one individual hurts the other person. Maybe by his attitude. Okay, how it can be reprocessed and accepted in an appropriate manner? You said the thought can change things, but how it can be taken? Can you, some suggestion or any other example can you give?
He spoke means he spoke. It is why you take it to your heart, they'll say. It is your intention that it is hurting you, and it is your attitude that you will take it to your heart. He spoke it as a word. He said something, and you are making meaning out of it. And you are saying that it is hurting you. It is not going to pain you anywhere. Where is the pain, they will ask.
Yeah, I would like to add on some things. See, for example, if somebody is scolding me, okay, there is something which is inside which is actually getting me tensed, right? So, for example, I'm just going, a person scolds me as a bus or something, I will not get tensed because I'm not going to change, or nothing is going to, affect me because of that. But at the same time, if a person scolds me in other bad words or something, I get tensed, I get, angry, and I feel like going and hitting him back. So there is something in me which is actually triggering this type of response. So I think that we need to concentrate more on ourselves as to actually find out why we are getting tensed, and if we get tensed, is it something we are going to get? So we need to invite our adult and put in place and understand that which is right, which is wrong, and are we getting affected or not. So it's better we see inside rather than seeing outside.
Yeah, you're talking about the TA, the TA point.
Not exactly. I'm just telling you the logic of life. So I take it like that. So it's not TA or it's not something else. I see it as a problem and how various solutions or various methodologies can be used so that I feel peace at the same time. I don't hurt the other person also. So it's more of a defensive mechanism rather than going head-on collusion. That's it.
And Ramana Maharishi from Tiruvannamalai,
Okay.
he has told, don't put the camera towards others, focusing what that person is saying about me, what the way they look at me, they say me, and put the camera towards you. Everything is here. So if you are all right, the world is going to be all right. That reminds, your words sharing reminds me that.
Yeah, it's really difficult to take it inside, but once you actually use it on, even I was actually thinking, how can I be wrong? Because a person is scolding me, and obviously I need to get tensed, right? So how can I be wrong is what the question was. But after a couple of introspection and finding out, okay, why am I actually getting angry? Because there are lots of words, but why this word is actually getting me tensed or something like that, actually gave me an answer. Okay, there is some vulnerability inside me. So
something about emotional intelligence also. People try to trigger the other person's emotion,
yeah,
and we find to tackle the situation.
okay,
And you must be aware that your emotions are to be balanced.
balance.
It is sort of EI, emotional intelligence.
Okay. In an organization setup, this is there. Basically, whenever your colleague or somebody who is really had a good rapport with you, he knows which situation you will get the tense and what word if I actually use or what method I do. It will stimulate you. So it's better, having understanding, good understanding about yourself as to why it is like that, and nullifying it would actually help us more advanced and move forward.
So self-analysis will take us to more success, towards success and a peaceful life.
Wonderful.
I have one more. Yeah,
Go
can
ahead.
you tell me what is the duration of the landmark class and how long it is?
I can suggest somebody, I don't know where you are living. If you are in Chennai, it is happening in Chennai, in Bangalore and Hyderabad.
They will have an introductory session, and then if you like it, then you can join a longer program.
Bhavani Shankar sir, if it really matters to you, or you must sit for a session, an evening, and you can talk to a person who is a landmark forum person, and then you create some wanting, why you want that course, and is that really going to bring some changes for you in that particular issue what you're facing, then you go for the course and you will get out.
Fine. So it is an individual course, but all such individuals are grouped together and conducted. It is not an open close. Correct?
If it is an open forum where hundreds of people will be seated in the auditorium, and the leader will be.
They have screening.
Pardon?
They are screening, correct?
No, they don't screen. You must really want it, and you go for the course.
Okay.
It's like going to church. It's like going to a big church, and they give a sermon, and then like in church, you go up and affirm your devotion to Jesus Christ. Here, you go up and affirm your devotion to the philosophy of the organization, and you tell how the philosophy has changed your life.
One incident, like a person was complaining about his, after marriage, how life is not that happy for him, and because of the attitude of the wife. And the leader was taking this, mostly it happens for either women as well as men. So he was saying, you choose your partner, like how you choose to have a strawberry ice cream or a vanilla ice cream, and after which you cannot complain. It is your choice. It is not somebody is forcing. Even if your parents are saying you get married with this person, a few decades back, the family was the marriages happen with the parents' decision. Now the thing is different, scenario is different. Earlier, whoever has chosen their family life, like they may complain, my wife is like this, my husband is like this. But finally, after you choose to get married, only then you get married. You cannot complain your choice. You have to see how you can make your choice more interesting, acceptable, understanding, loving, so that way they create it.
But I think some people resist having to take personal responsibility, because many people will say, my parents chose this husband, or it's the will of God, it was meant to be. Some people might resist having to take personal responsibility for their own conditions.
That's what you want, some changes in your life, and you go for this course. Before that, they will create step by step, first who you are, and are you connected with the people. You cannot be a disconnected person from the society, from your own family, and how that connection is it stronger? And you have to go take it up. This course will be for 3 days, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and the Friday session will be to connect with your families. On Saturdays, they all will come with very touchy, very mood moments that their father, after so many years, they had a talk with their father, mother, and it was not the way they thought. It was so loving, very, very much mood. They'll come back to the session the Saturday mornings, and Saturday evening they'll take some assignments to do, complete, and Sunday will be like they create the possibility of that a man is a meaning-making machine. You make meanings out of your life. Whatever happens, you make this meaning, that meaning. There's nothing, things happened. That's all. You make so many meanings, you manipulate everything. And
I think something that the storytelling therapy and this landmark approach have in common is that, we acknowledge that we are not completely happy. We are not complete. But here we are, and now we have to make a plan of how to get from point A to point B. Point B is, to live happily ever after, or as happily ever after as possible. So what do we have to do in order to, get out of the frustrating conditions? In storytelling therapy, one thing we do is imagine a path that in a story that a character might do in order to improve his or her situation. It's an imaginary character, but that it may give us ideas and it may give us inspiration how to behave in real life. This landmark method, I think it's more direct, where you actually, as Hema has said, you actually confront the people around you and together discuss how you can make your life more happy. But they are both involved in taking stock of the situation now, seeing how one feels, both the joys and the frustrations, and then moving forward, hopefully in a way that will make one happier.
Yeah, when they come and share their joyous moments because of their decision to transform themselves, and everyone will get shaken, like, why I should be like this? I should also make the joyous moments possible. Don't create the bonding communications. They'll go for that next day, very next day. They'll do it.
Mhm.
That's how on listening to other people sharing that happens.
Mhm. Good. Okay. So next week, please take a little notes during the week. What have you learned in these 11 weeks? What do you think might stay with you? What ideas have you had? And you can think about the healing story that you made up for yourself. If you worked with a client, you can think about the healing story, the metaphors that came up with the client. Just do a little recap about what you've thought about, what you've learned in this last 11 weeks, how you are different now as compared to how you were 11 weeks ago. So I'm hoping each of you will speak for a few minutes about this process, what it has meant to you, how it has affected you, if it's affected you in any way. At the very least, just review the experience of telling your life story, the experience of thinking about metaphors for your experience, and the experience of developing a healing story, both for yourself and if you did for your client. Okay, so when we meet next week, will each of you speak for a few minutes about that?
Yeah.
Great. Okay, so shall we stop recording, or does anyone else want to say anything else?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
This the psychotherapy, analytical therapy, speaks about the three things: the ego, and
For ego.
Superego, yes.
Can you can you?
Yes, this is Freud's vision of the personality. The superego is that part of us that is it's imagined as high up above, and it is the ideals of society, the ideals of how one should behave.
Of the society.
It's the rules and the law of the land, how one should behave. That's on the top. On the bottom is the id, which in Freud's vision, that is the unconscious, and that is full of desires that want immediate gratification and have absolute greediness, just a desire to take this, take that, eat it, grab it, take it, control it, without any concern for anybody else.
Okay.
So if everybody behaved like that, you'd have everybody killing each other in the street. So society could not exist. So the superego is trying to say, okay, please follow the rules, and the id is saying, I don't want any rules. And in the middle, between them, is the ego, the consciousness, which is trying to negotiate, trying to mediate between the regulations and the desires.
Okay.
See? It's trying to say, okay, we'll have a little bit of chocolate ice cream, but not too much. We'll have a little bit of this, but not too much, because we have to keep following the regulations to some degree. So that is Freud's vision. It is a very negative vision of the unconscious. Jung, for example, sees the unconscious as a place of healing, of transformation, of imagination, a place in us that gives birth to new things. That's another way to see the unconscious. But Freud is very negative about the unconscious. Okay, so it's a theory of the personality. On the folk level, the theory of the personality is the combination of all the different animals. You know, the wolf that correspond to the id, because the wolf is known as, a wolf will devour anything. But the king of the beasts, the lion, if he's a good lion, he would correspond to the superego. But if the lion is corrupted, if he's corrupted by the id and gets greedy, then he has to be rehabilitated or destroyed. But if you put together all of the animals, all of the personalities that we project onto animals, if you put them all together, that is a folk version of the theory of the personality. That we have a part of us that's sly like a fox. We have a part of us that's panicky like a rabbit. We have a part of us that's sneaky like a snake. And you put it all together and you have a personality. But Freud, Freud and Jung are known as the founders of psychoanalysis. And as I say, Freud has his negative view of the unconscious, but Jung has a very different and a much more respectful and positive view of the unconscious. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very clear.
Okay. So shall we stop recording?
Yes.
We'll stop recording. Just a second. Okay.